Do you want it? I don't want it. Because you're asking for it. You're dying for it.
Okay, look, I know that no one's been asking for this video, but I have been dying to make it. That's right, this is the full transparency video I have been promising. It's all about my background, how I got into content creation, the astrology that supported my decision to get into content creation, and the ways in which it has been successful or not so successful in terms of navigating the realities of capitalism. You know, just light Wednesday conversation as one does. So grab your popcorn and your notebooks, because this is about to get really, really real. Hey Cosmic Cuties, it is your friendo, the Lady Ms. Vagina Jenkins, and this is going to be a much more transparent video than ones that I've made in the past. I basically want to talk about how it is that I came to content creation, both in terms of like my background, but also like the astrological context that brought me here. I also want to talk about the platforms that I use on social media to help me to survive capitalism and how I use them. And I also want to do a quick Q&A session because some folks had some questions about basically my approach to social media and the ways in which I use social media to help me to survive capitalism. Yes. So because there's so much that goes into this topic, I'm gonna break this video up into 3 parts. So if you come across this video, please know that there are 2 other parts, which I will link here and also maybe here successfully, we'll see how it works. Part 1, my background, or maybe more about the context that I bring to this endeavor. So I am from a Black Southern poverty class background. And I name those particular identities as a way to like bookmark this really specific experience of being a part of like the poverty class, but specifically as Black people experience it, which is a whole other level of poverty, and as Southern people experience it, which is a very different experience from West Coast versions or Midwest versions of poverty. My mother was poverty class, her mother before her, my father comes from poverty class, and so do his parents. And I mention that lineage because I think it's really important for people to understand that under capitalism, very few people actually class jump or exceed the class that they were born into, that their parents were born into, etc. But it is a part of the American dream to aspire to reach the upper classes, right? And so my mother instilled in me very, very early on that education was the key to navigating capitalism successfully. So because of that, I got really, really good grades in school, and I stayed in school, and I went on to pursue a bachelor's degree at the university level. And because I had internalized that school, or maybe getting good grades, particularly in school, was the key to upward mobility, and because I'm autistic, I missed the part about social connections leading to upward mobility. I now understand that a large part of why people are encouraged to go to college is to network with people outside of their class bracket. But I didn't understand that at the time, and so all I did was study and get good grades. So upon graduating, I had no career prospects lined up, and actually graduated college to engage in survival sex work and what I would call street or underground economies. But after a while, I did find my footing in terms of like legitimate jobs, and I got my first entry level jobs. And by entry level, I'm talking about call centers, data entry, filing, food service, and hospitality. And those jobs were fine to a certain extent. The ableism, though, is what got me. That is the part that I just failed at navigating time and time again. I don't know if people are aware of this, but statistically, it's estimated that 85% of autistic folks are either or underemployed, and that was absolutely the case with me. Those entry-level jobs are the most that I was ever able to achieve in terms of employment, except for one position, which I'll talk about in a sec. But yeah, the deal was I just kept experiencing these entry-level jobs where I would come in and say it was like a 2-year cycle. I would come in, I would be the favored employee for a year's time, always called dependable, definitely the first one called on for any sort of responsibility, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden something would shift and the bullying would start. First, it definitely started with, oh, you don't seem happy. I wish you would smile more, that kind of thing. And then it progressed into, oh, so-and-so client, customer, coworker says that you make them uncomfortable. You don't seem happy here. Have you ever considered this thing or this performance improvement plan kind of thing, And it would be that. And then it would move into micromanaging until it just completely devolved and I was forced to quit. Except for the last job that I ever had, which was as a grant writing consultant. So technically speaking, I didn't have an employer. I was a consultant, but I did have a number of direct supervisors, so womp womp. But yeah, for 5 years, I was a grant writing professional, part of a team that really, really valued me. We earned so much money for the organizations that we were fundraising and grant writing for. And I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life. I felt like, this is it. I'm finally going to be middle class. I just know it. And then 5 years in, it started again with, you don't seem happy. And I knew exactly the road that was going to go down, and I had a choice to make. I felt like I had a choice to make whether I was going to stay at this job or in this particular industry, or if I was going to do something different that honored me and my neurotype a little bit more. And so in March 2020, the COVID pandemic happened, and I used the excuse of stepping back due to COVID, and I allowed people make their own meaning about that in order to leave that job. In fact, not only did I leave that job, I left that industry, and I left the idea of working for other people completely behind, and instead decided to focus on working for myself. In 2020, I decided that I was a full-time artist and that I could be a professional astrologer. 2 things that I consider my autistic special interests, and I decided in 2020 to try and make a living using my autistic special interests. And I'll tell you a little bit about the astrology that went into that choice. So there's this notion of dispositors. Basically, we're talking about looking at a whole chart, understanding that there's all 12 signs in each chart, and understanding that each one of those signs is ruled by a particular planet, and then looking for those planets in the chart and understanding that there's kind of like a chain of command. Well, my chain of astrological command ends at a Mars in Aquarius. And the thing that I will say about Mars in Aquarius is being moved by, being passionate about propelling oneself forward in queerness. And so in that way, I knew that I needed to do something about earning money that was off the beaten path, that was considered somehow radical, strange, weird, queer. Mars in Aquarius really gave me the confidence to like think that it was possible to step out on my own. Then supported by my second house in Capricorn. And then my second house in Capricorn told me a lot about how I needed to be an entrepreneur, or rather one who earns money based on managing their own time and labor. I will also say that my Mars in Aquarius is sitting in the third house of communication. So I felt like I would have a lot of energy, passion about speaking, but specifically speaking in a social media context because of the Aquarius nature of my third house and the fact that I had these 11th house placements, Pluto and North Node. And I also associate the 11th house with social media in that it's about our place in the world, place in communities, and I definitely think of social media as an online community. Then two, I also have a number of placements in the 9th house, which is about, you know, higher education, the occult, astrology, those kinds of things. And so, yeah, I read my chart for the idea of the things that would be supporting this endeavor to make a living through social media, and with an eye for looking at potential challenges. And I will say that this redefining work for oneself is one of my favorite topics to talk about in astrology. This is the type of astrology work that I get most excited about doing. The work of helping people understand what their spiritual purpose is and trying to align that with what is possible in the physical realm. That's the stuff that I get really, really excited about, redefining what one's work is meant to be. If you are in a similar place of like career transition, please definitely hit me up for a reading because that is the stuff that I love to talk about. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here for just the first part of the video that talks about my background. In the second part, we're going to talk about the specific platforms that I'm on, how I'm earning money, and how much money I am earning on each one of those platforms. And then in the third video, I'm going to answer all of your questions about how one might use social media to navigate capitalism more successfully. You know, questions about editing, branding, marketing, stuff like that. All right, so that's it for part one. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't, and please consider becoming a member of this channel or offering up support using that thanks button below. I cannot wait to see you in part two. Bye.